Welcome back to the Node.js series, and in this video we will be talking about asynchronous programming. Why asynchronous programming? First of all, JavaScript is synchronous in nature. That means code gets executed from top to bottom. Now, in the real world scenario, if we have execution or operations that is going to take some level of time, for example, network requests, database queries, or RO operations, these kinds of operation takes some time to execute. For example, if we are querying a data from a database, that might take a couple of seconds, maybe 1 or 2 seconds. And let's assume we want to return the result to our console.log. We want to return these output using console.log. In this case, console.log is a synchronous code, and our database query is taking some level of time before returning the result. And after console.log is being executed, there is no result, so it's going to return undefined before the result have been returned from our database code. So to resolve these issues, we have asynchronous programming. Now, when we are talking of asynchronous programming, we will be looking at a series of concepts. First will be callback, another will be premises, and also we will be looking at async and awaits in this video. Now, to demonstrate how they operate, we will be seeing example using code. The first one will be a callback. So for that, I'm going to create a file called callback, and this will be a JS file because we are working with a JavaScript or Node. So now we have our callback file. And what is callback? Callback is passing another function as argument to a function. So for this, let me define callback. I will make this as comment. Callback, and we can say, okay, so callback I function pass PASSET as GUMENTS arguments to other function. So callback are functions passed as arguments to other functions. So that's just the common definition of a callback. And another thing is that, so it is executed. We can say it is executed, EXECUTED, after the completion of NOUS task CASKS. Okay, so callback is executed after the completion of asynchronous tasks. So these are key points that I will want you to understand. Let me put this on another line. So yeah, so this is very easy. I think you have been playing with callback as long as you are familiar with JavaScript. For example, we have the even listener in the DOM. When working with the DOM, even listener, you use callback heavily in that. Even for file system operations, we also use callback. But let us see the synchronous nature first before moving on to callback. So let us say we have our functions. First, we will have a variable. So let, and this variable will be called, let us say answer, SWER, answer. And we can have our function, UNS function. And what should be the name of our function? We can say sum, and here we will pass in two arguments, and no, and num1, and num2, number1, number2, because we want to add two numbers. So here we can, we can mimic maybe a network request, because that is going to take some level of time. Let's assume we want to maybe fetch a data from a database, and that is going to take 30 seconds. And we can use set timer, set timer, and set timer is going to take a function, and we will use our function here. So, and also another, so we want 3000, that would be 3 seconds, 3000 milliseconds. And here we want to add two numbers, so our num1 and num2. So for this we can say answer is equals to num1 plus num2. So this is going to just mimic our request or database call, because it's going to take some level of time to compute and then send our answer. So now we have all of this setup. Let us try to first to look at this. We can say up here, we can say console.log, and here we will pass in there FRST first line, LINE line. Okay, the first line, and below the first line we will also pass in console. We will say console.log. Okay, since we have a functions called sum, let us call sum first and pass in 3 and 5, because we are taking in two arguments, so we will pass in 3 and 5 as arguments because of the parameters here. So now here we can say answer, ANSWER, answer. So, and let us just console.log last AST, last line, LINE. We can say there, last line. Okay, above we have the first line, and after implementing our function, which is sum, we pass into parameters, and here we use our set timers to mimic our database call, and blah blah blah. We want to store the answer from here, and we want to store the result from num1 and num2 into answer, and then this would take 30 seconds or 1000 milliseconds, and we call our function, which is sum, and pass in the two arguments, which is 3 and 5. So our answer should be 8, which 5 plus 3 is 8. And now if we say console.log answer, we should be getting 8 as answer. But see something interesting here. If we save this and go to our console and say nodemon, ODEMON, nodemon, the name of our file, which is callback, CALBACK, and enter. Now see something interesting here. Yeah, so our first lines of code, which is console.log, the first line, this got executed with no error. And next we have answer. This should return 8, but now we are getting undefined, answer undefined. And our last code, which is the last line, we have the last line. So this is the issues that we face with synchronous code. And for that, to solve this issue, we need to use asynchronous approach to solve such an issue. That is going to be whenever this computation is going to get executed, the result will be returned immediately. Is going to get executed in our console. So if this would take 3 hours, that means until this has been executed or completed, only under such circumstances our result should be returned and then print to our console. So that's the intuition behind asynchronous programming. So hope you got the idea. Now let us try to convert this code into an asynchronous code. So to do that, like we said with the definition, their functions are passed as arguments to other function. So this is our function sum. We can pass in another argument. We can pass in another parameters called callback. Yep. So callback, and for that we will create a function callback. We will create a function. No, we shouldn't call this callback. We can call this whatever name. We can say maybe adding. Let us say we can say results. I think so. Yeah, result. RESULT. Yeah, this is. You can give whatever name, it doesn't matter. So result, and since we are saying callback, we will call our callback here and pass in what? Answer. We pass in answer. That means we also need to pass in answer here, and yeah, we can copy this code and paste it into our result function. So now we can say, okay, let me view this. Okay, so previously we had the first line, answer undefined, the last line. But now you are going to see something pretty interesting here. So if we save this, now we can see the first line, the last line, and this waited for some 30 seconds, and then before printing this error. So I think we have an error. Callback is not a function. Okay, my bad. So yeah, we also need to pass in result. So this should be the error. Let us increase the milliseconds to 4. So now we have 4 seconds, so that you can see the okay, yeah. So let us save. If we come below the first line, the last line, and after the 4 seconds, we see immediately our function, our callback is being called, and then we have answer is equals to 3, because in result we are passing result, and here in result we have answer, and then pass in our answer variable. So this is how callback runs or execute. So hope you get the idea, because in the real world scenario, we don't want our code to depend on running line by line, wherein if we have let us say we have a API call that is going to take 3 seconds, 4 seconds to get executed. We don't want to take that time and then block the execution. We don't want to block the execution or flow of our code. So that's why we use asynchronous. So this is just callback, and the next will be a premises. And for that we will create a new file, and call this promises.js, or we can just say promise.js. Yeah. So next would be promise, and I would just close the terminal and okay. So next is promise. Now you might have a huge questions. By the way, let us show something interesting here. We have used callback. Okay, we have demonstrated callback, knowing the difference between asynchronous and synchronous approach. Let's try to see how this is implemented based on file system. So I will comment out of this. And below we can say cons, as we saw in the previous video, the modules. If you didn't see that video, please reference that and then come back to this video. So for file system, we say file fs require to import our module, and here we will pass in fs. And yeah, so to have a callback, fs dot re file, and here we will pass in couple of parameters. And yeah, so this will be utf8 to decode our values, and here will be the file name. I think we can create a new file. Yeah, we can create a new file here called first first file .txt and dhis. This is my first file, file. We save this, create another file called second, second file .txt, and this is my second second file. So now we have two files, and let me remove this, and this for now. We will come back to premise. So there is something we need to understand before discussing premise, and that is callback here. So yeah, we have second file and we also have first file. Now let us use first file to read. Okay, so first file first file.txt and now we will pass in our callback, and callback, the first parameter will be error, so we can say error, and next will be data or result, so whatever name, I will say data, and this will be an error function. Yeah, so this is how we write callback for file system. This is our callback function. Whatever thing that is placed in here will be return, and then you can display into console. Let us say we have an error. We can say if error. We saw this in the previous video, but let us go over it once again. If we have an error, we can return return console.log, and here we can say error, and error, passing the error. Otherwise, we console.log what? Our data. So for that, we can also make this look pretty cool by saying result. So if we run this and go to our terminal, try to execute nodemon. So nodemon, nodemon, callback, and execute this. Now we can see our result. This is my first file because we are reading the first file. So imagine if this would take, let us assume we have millions upon millions of lines of text within our first file. If we have millions of text in this file, it's going to take some time. So if that would take 10 seconds, this is going to get executed after the 10 seconds without an error. So this is a callback using file system. And let us discuss a callback help. This is another interesting concept to understand before moving to promises and async and await. The reason we use async and promises is because of the callback help. This can resolve or this can solve the same issues as promises and callback, but because of the complexity of reading the code or maintaining the code, we tend to go to promises as well as async and await. So let us see what is callback so that you can know. Let us say we want to read two files, which is first file and second file, and then write the result into another file, a new file. So we can say we have already read our first file here, which is first file, and then we check if we have an error. If there is no error, we read our second file by saying fs or read file, and we will pass in second file .txt and pass in the decoding UTF-8. And we saw all of these things in the past video. We pass in the parameter error and data, and also check if we have an error, because it is possible that we might have an error we might not have an error in the first reading file, but we might have an error in second reading file. So we need to check again. If error, we can just copy this and paste here. By the way, I will recommend you to read every single lines of code line by line, because if you are just beginning to build the muscle memory, you will need to practice, and the practice comes by you writing lines upon lines by yourself. You write and then delete, write, delete the codes until you get or understand the logic of that particular code you are writing. So now we want to read file. So read file, as we saw in the previous video, in the module video, while writing file, if you don't have file name, automatically the file is going to get created. So for that, we can say new new file. I don't think we have a file called new file .txt, and then in that we want to say data. Okay, so let us come here and say data1, and here we will say data2. Okay, yeah, so data1, so that you can know what we are doing, plus data2. We want to concatenate the two and then store the values within the new file. So for this, we can say error, and here we will say arrow function if we have an error, we should console log the error. Otherwise, we say console.log successful, successful, successful. So let us save this, or let us go through this before seeing the output. So now we read our first file, which is first file.txt, and then we check if we have an error. If we don't have an error, we go and then read the second file. If there is an error, we console log the error. If there is no error, then we write the result from the first file and the second file into a new file, and then check if we have an error. If there is no error, we console log successful. So this is how we okay, so this is what we call the callback help. Imagine this is just a simple program. Imagine if you are writing callbacks dozens of times. Just imagine how tedious it's going to be. Just this code is like bulky and a bit difficult to understand. So to resolve these issues, that's the reason we are going for promises or async and await. So let us save this, and now we can see successful in our console. That means everything was executed successfully. And let us check for our new file. So here we have new files. If we open this, we can see this is our first file, and this is my first file, this is my second file. So everything was executed successfully. But I hope you saw why we might not want to go for a callback always. So let us go to promise now. Okay, so promise is just a way of writing a clean code, because we don't want to have a callback here when we are writing a huge applications or maybe a software. We don't want to have a bucket and difficult to read code. We go for promise. So to implement promise, we can say const. Let me write promises, promises. So we can say const, and this will be called my promise, promise is equals to new. This will be the object, my promise, promise promise, and in here we will pass in two parameters. One will be resolve, RESOLVE, and another will be reject, JECT. Now let us try to explain what this is with a real world example. In real world scenario, let us assume you promise a person, or you promise your friend to purchase a book for him, and now maybe you said, I'm going to buy you a book in one day time frame. Okay, you said in 1 day time you are going to purchase him a book, and now it have passed 5 days, you didn't purchase the book. That means you didn't resolve your promise, or you didn't adhere to your promise. So in this case, your promise is rejected. But in the scenario where you told him that you were going to purchase the book in 1 day period and you bought the book, that means you resolve your promise. So in Node, if we are discussing a promise, it's the same concept that applies to this. So if you are doing a database call, and let us say you are searching a database for a name called John, and there is no name called John, that means we are going to return reject, because there is no name called John. But in the case that we found John, we can say resolve, because we got the rightful content that we promised to get. So now, to see this in example, we can have a variable called const. You can say const, a variable called success. Yeah, ZUCCESS, and this will be true, TRUE. This will be true, and now we will check if success, that means if true, resolve. So we can say operation OPERATION, operation successful, SUCCESSUFUL. Why? Successful. Yep. So if true, that means we resolve, operation is successful. S ELSE S. Okay. So we can say okay, yeah. S reject. Oops. We will say oops. Let us say operation is not, SUCCESS. Yeah, operation is not successful. So this is how we write a promise. So now let us say we want to display our result into the console to know if our promise was resolved or rejected. So for this, we can use the chaining method by saying then, using dent. So we will say promise, my promise dot then. So yeah, we can, let me, okay. Yeah, so my promise, so we can say dot dent, and in here we will pass in functions. This would be arrow data, DATA, and so console, CONSNS dot log, LOG, console dot log, and this would be, what should we do? Yeah, okay. So let us see. Why am I getting error? Result. We will come to that. RESULT result, and here we will pass in data. So yeah, okay. Don't know what is going on here. Don't know what is going on here. Don't know what is going on here. Okay. So manbyte, we will copy this console.log, copy, and then paste in here. Okay. And if we have an error, we can say dot catch and say error, error, and this will be an arrow function, and we will say console dot log, and here will be error, and we can just say error. Let's save this. Okay, so this is our promise. Let me walk you through this again. So we have an object, my promise, coming from this class, which is promise, and we have resolve and reject, like I explained using example, and then we have a variable called success, which is true. This is going to say check if maybe our data is successful or our operation is successful. If it is true, then resolve, operation successful. Otherwise, reject and say, oops, operation is not successful. This is just it. And we use the chaining method to print our result, or probably if we have an error. So let us close this terminal and nodemon, M-O-N, and say promise and enter. Now we can see in our console operations successfully. So one is successful. I think this, yeah, operation successful. So this is how we implement a promise. So now we can also see another example using the file system, and for that we will comment this out and import our file system. So fs equals to require and then fs. So one thing here will be to pass in to have the promise attached to our file system. So for that we can say promises be promises, and yeah, this is how we use a file system along with promise. So now we can say of fs dot, let us say we want to read a file. So fs dot read file, and then in here we can pass in with the example we have just used. Let us use first file. So first file file dot txt, and then we also have utf-8 and utf-8. Yeah. So now we are going to use the chaining method on this, and this will be dot then. We already seen this. This can be whatever name. Let us also use result here. result result, and we have a function console. Let us say, okay, yeah, console console.log, and here we will pass in, I think we can pass in our data. So for that we will say output or result, result result. Otherwise, if we have an error, we catch the error, and then console log the error. So here we will say error, error, and yeah. So let us save this, and now you can see in our console, this is my first file. So this is how if we have a misspell file and save this, we will see an error. We see an error here. So this is how we implement promises along with files when we are working with files. So the next concept to discuss is async and await. And for that, let us create a new file called async, async. Yeah, async.js. Enter. Okay. So again, you might ask, I'm using promise because I don't want to come across callback here from callback. But why should we use async and await when we have promise? So The answer for this is very simple. Uh, Async and await, it provides a more synchronous-like approach to writing asynchronous program. So you are going to feel like you are writing your normal synchronous code, but it is asynchronous. That's just it for async and await. So for that, our first example of async and await would be, let us say we want to demonstrate this using a file system. So we can also say, first I will write a comment here, say async nc slash await, await, yeah. So const file system require, require, and here we say fs. And one thing to note, we will also add premise, pro premise, premises, not premise. And here we can have a function. So function, fun, function. And what is the name of our function? We can say read, R-E-A, read file content, C-O-N-T-E-N-T, content. So this is our function. But using async and await, our function needs to be async. So for this, we will say async, async functions. And here we will say, okay, const, C-O-N-S-T, const or data. We want to read file and save the data into this variable called data. So for that, we can say fs dot read file, and here we can pass in, let us say, second file, because we have to deal with first file in premise, and now we can deal with second file. So for this, we can say second, E-N-S-E-C-O-N-D, second file, .txt, and pass in the decoding UTF-8, and I think, yeah, this is it. We pass in the data that will be received from this reading file. We pass that into our data variable. But if we have an async functions, then we need to have await here, A-W-A-R-T. We need to have await, and this is how we write our async and await. So let us assume we have we want to print the data. So we can say console.log and then data. We say result SCLT, and we are passing data. So yeah. So this is how we write, and here we can call our function read file content. So now we have called our read file content functions. Let us save. First, let us close this terminal, and then nodemon, Nodemon, and then async, async. So we save this, and now you can see this is my second file. So this is how we use async and await. But writing this is not just the full syntax, because we need to handle the error. So to handle the error, we can use try catch, a block. So we will copy this and say try. We try this code. We try this. If there is no error, we print result, the data, to our console. Otherwise, we catch. If we have an error, we catch and say we can have error. Yeah, this should be Okay, yeah. So if we should catch an error, if we have an error where maybe reading the data, probably the name of the file is not correct or what have you, we can catch this. What we are, oh, okay. This is not primary, so remove this dot. We are not chaining this. Okay, so now we have a catch. If there is an error, we can console log. So console, console, console.log, and then here we say error, yeah, error. Oh, yeah. Let's just pass error. This is just for demo purpose. So this is the actual syntax of writing async and await. You have to use the try and catch to handle error, because it's possible that you might have error. And by the way, in premises also, we use .then and cache to handle errors, and also in callbacks, we use in the parameter we have error and out of the data. So if we have an error, we use if a statement to check the condition. If there is an error, we should print out or console log the error. Otherwise, we print the data. So this is how we handle errors for the three concepts of async programming. So I think this is the end of this video. If you love to see more of this content, or you want me to explain more on any of these concepts, you can comment in the comment below, so that we can make another video demonstrating in depth of each of these topics. But I think this has been explained very well. And with this, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.